And Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. It's the event everybody's talking about, Kanye West's America First sit-down with President Trump at the White House.
You know, they try to scare me to not wear this hat, my own friends, but this hat, it gives me power in a way.
We're going to have more of Kanye in the West Wing ahead, but first, Democrats Hillary Clinton and Eric Holder are under fire for their recent comments attacking Republicans.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about.
Michelle says that, you know, when they go low, we go high. No. When they go low, we kick them.
And President Trump's responding to Holder.
You better be careful what he's wishing for, that I can tell you. He's better be careful what he's wishing for. That's a disgusting statement for him to make. For him to make a statement like that is a very dangerous statement. You know, they talk about us. We are exactly opposite.
And Congressman Steve Scalise, who was shot by a deranged left-wing gunman, is calling out the left's mob mentality, writing, quote, "If they want change, they need to convince people with their ideas and actually win elections, rather than call for violent resistance, harassment, and mob rule." Meanwhile, Holder's predictably backtracking, tweeting, quote, "Okay, stop the fake outrage. I'm obviously not advocating violence. In fact, when I was AG, violent crime in the U.S. was historically low. I'm saying Republicans are undermining our democracy and Democrats need to be tough, proud, and stand up for the values we believe in. The end." All right, Dana, one of the things that really works in politics is when you make your political opponents fight amongst each other.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what's happening right now. You have Michelle Obama, Hillary, Eric Holder, all fighting amongst each other, and that helps the right.
You know who would not have apologized? Michael Avenatti.
Oh, that's true.
That's true. Right? And I do think that there is something about the wings, especially in the left wing right now, wanting a fighter. Somebody's going to say, like, why would you apologize for that? Obviously, one, you could say he got a laugh out of the crowd. President Trump says lots of things get laughs from the crowd. And what does the left say? Like, oh, I can't believe he said that. It was terrible, right? And now the right is saying that about Eric Holder.
Fake
like,
outrage.
Oh my God, like, it's all about proportionality.
I'm going to use that fake outrage line next time I say something
That's
controversial.
Fake outrage.
Right.
But Avenatti would not have apologized.
No, he wouldn't. He would have doubled down.
Exactly.
Greg, it's funny the Democrats debating on whether to take the high road. I don't think they've ever taken the high road.
Accusing an innocent man of gang rape for about 2 weeks is not exactly the high road. And where does Scalise get off lecturing people about violence?
Yeah.
Anyway, I will say this before I get into my serious. I actually believe what Holder is saying because I believe in the principle that you don't take the worst meaning or the worst intention of what somebody's saying. I don't believe he was inciting violence.
Right.
He was basically saying you have to fight harder. Having said that, accusations of incivility, in my opinion, don't bug me at all. I think incivility is actually pretty good because it reduces the chance for violence. If you're incivil with each other, it might mean you might not punch. The thing that bothers me is the incitement and enabling of a mob. So when you have Netflix employees, for example, stalking Kilmeade in order for a show on Netflix and then inciting the passengers on the subway to join in this orgy of persecution. What you have to look for is you have to look at people like that because persecution is like this contagion. It's like when you're in a mob, it's spread through repetition and it can happen very easily. And I think we need to contrast words again and deeds. What Holder's saying is words, but you got to look at the deeds. And people are comparing Donald Trump, his words to left-wing deeds. I get it. Trump can be rude. His jokes can be mean. But there's no right-wing Antifa or Occupy Wall Street. There's no right-wing Scalise shooting. There's no right-wing mobs chasing people out of restaurants or Broadway plays. And there's no right-wing Netflix employees because nobody who's right-wing works at Netflix.
Yeah, right. So when Holder says something like this, I didn't think he was actually talking about literally kicking Republicans with his foot.
I'm glad to hear that.
I think most people think that. But what Greg's point is that in the context of all the other deeds that have gone on in the last week, month, year, where there's been violence and threats and things like that, it doesn't add anything to the conversation in a positive way.
Oh, I think it does. I think both Dana and Greg said to you, Jesse, that what Democrats want are people who are going to stand up and fight for the Democratic brand. Right now, Republicans control the White House, the Congress, and the Supreme Court. And oftentimes they feel like, remember that USA Today piece the president wrote this week? They think he gets away with saying things that are untrue. And nobody's standing up and say, hey, this guy is misleading you, Republicans. Hey, where did you go, Republican Party? Come on back. Don't need to become Trumpian. But here's the thing. I'm listening to all you guys, and I think, wait a second, what kind of one-sided presentation is this? This is the guy who was at rallies this week, and he's got the crowd yelling, lock her up. Not about Hillary. It was Dianne Feinstein.
Clever.
This is clever.
It was a nice transition.
You want to give him credit, but at the same time, when Holder says Democrats need to stand up, oh, he's inside. I just think that's crazy. And
But
then,
we
of course,
didn't say that. We've said
no.
that.
And then you say there's no shooting.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Steve Scalise was terrible. That was an act of horror. But you got to admit, they went into a pizza parlor in Washington.
The pizza parlor thing, though, is
Yes.
you've brought this up every
I bring
day
it up.
this week.
Okay,
It's
I'll
not
bring up.
like-
How about Charlottesville?
Well, wait, can I
Did they
finish?
run over somebody in Charlottesville? Was that a
It was
right-wing
one
mob?
person, and they were nuts.
Oh, I see. So in
I
other
think
words,
that
you
Charlottesville-
excuse
It's a
that
bug. No,
behavior on the-
I didn't. No, wait. Let me finish.
Separate.
When it comes to Republicans, we got to be honest. It's a bug in the system. When it comes to the left, it's the system. You guys have had the Weather Underground, the SLA, the Black Panthers, the Manson family,
Oh, I see.
Antifa. Well, Republicans have nothing like
I
that.
see. You have white nationalists. You have a Klan. Well, how about the John Birch
Incompetent white
Society back
nationalists
then?
who are fools.
No, but I mean, you make
Jedediah,
excuses
let's get
whenever
in
it's on the
here.
It's
right.
not an excuse. I hate them as much as you hate them.
Jedediah, what do you think?
It's interesting you both gave Holder the benefit of the doubt, and that's great. I probably would too, but he wouldn't give you, if one of you said that, you could
That's
forget
true.
it. He wouldn't have your back at all. I think this all started with the refusal to accept that Trump had won. And it started with that, and people on the left said, you know what, this was not a proper election. And they incited everybody to say that this election was not tangible and they should rally against. And it started with Maxine Waters. And I think the difference is these are leaders. These are many leaders now in the Democratic Party. You know, people talk to me all the time, oh, Tea Party rallies, you know, the signs they saw at Tea Party rallies. I don't want to hear about signs and have that signs of people at a rally, which, by the way, I never saw an offensive sign. I went to 1 million rallies and never saw one. I don't want to hear that compared to leaders in the Democratic Party, Holder, Hillary Clinton, who could have been president, coming out and saying outrageous things. And good on Michelle Obama, by the way, who came out and said, this is not acceptable what's going on. I'm sure Hillary Clinton was not happy with her, but I commend that because I think when something like this happens, it's important for people within the party itself to stand up to it. So any Democrats that come out and stand up to this, I salute them as well.
I wish the Republicans would stand for some of the outrageous things.
Many Republicans criticize Donald Trump when he says something that is not appropriate. We are very willing to say he shouldn't have tweeted that. He shouldn't have said it.
I wish Jedediah. I wish
Where were you the last 2 years?
I want to differentiate between what we're talking about, though. And I don't want to litigate political violence here, but Greg was bringing up a lot of examples, and I was yesterday, of left-wing attacks on Republican officials, cabinet members, Trump family members, elected officials. There's been violence perpetrated by the right on the left in the streets, and that's awful, and that's random. But when you're going after political leadership in a democracy, that takes it to a higher level, and I think that's the difference.
What going after political leadership?
Ricin, threats against family members, chasing them around in the streets.
Jesse.
How is that any different?
What I'm saying is that's an attack on a political leadership and not something, driving into a car or shooting up a random pizza place. I'm not excusing that. I'm saying it's different categorically.
What? So it's different if someone stands up and says, hey, I disagree with you. I think, Mitch McConnell, that what you did to 9 America, and I'm in this airport and I'm going to let you hear it. That's not America.
So
That's
harassing
not
somebody
You're
out of a
okay with the
restaurant?
Maxine Waters approach?
What's Maxine saying?
Chasing people through restaurants.
Oh, no,
That's outrageous.
Chasing. You are so dramatic. All she said was,
I'm a drama
it's
queen.
okay to stand up
I'm
and
a drama
say,
queen.
hey, you're wrong.
Be gender neutral.
All
He
right.
said, get in
Anyway,
their face.
coming
That's
up,
right.
will Democrats' smears against Kavanaugh sink them in the midterms? Trump's latest attacks next.
All right, the Kavanaugh confirmation battle has become a midterm flashpoint that is firing up conservatives, giving Republicans a new issue to attack Democrats on. President Trump telling Fox and Friends about the impact of what's being called the Brit bounce.
I've got so many people saying, I wish you were running, I'd be out there voting, and, I'm not going to do it now because you're not running. I said, do me a favor, do it. Just go out and vote. That's what I'm telling my rallies. Go out and vote. Because historically, whoever wins the presidency, as you know better than anybody, They don't do well in midterms. I think this is different. The economy is the best it's ever been, ever. Plus, I really think that Justice Kavanaugh, the way he was treated so horribly, this is a fine man, what they did to him and his family, the Democrats, I don't think people are going to forget that so quickly. But I really think the Republicans are very energized, much more so now than 2 or 3 weeks ago.
We'll take it around the table now. Greg, some people suggest that the Brett bounce is really just a sugar high.
Yes.
But you know a lot about nutrition, so I'm wondering, do you think it was more like a protein meal?
I think it's an analogy. I had another one. I felt like the Kavanaugh bounce is more like the charge on your smartphone. So every day, if you don't plug it in, you lose energy. And the goal of the Republicans is to keep that phone charged. And the only way you're going to keep that phone charged is with anger, which is what the Democrats are doing the same thing. They're relying on anger. But the problem with the Democrats, it's been the same anger for 2 years. The phone's already charged. So I don't know if you can add more charge to that phone. However, the Republicans, they're charged, but now every day it's going to get a little bit less. So the Trump rallies are a way to plug that phone back in, get that charge back up. I have now exhausted that analogy.
Pretty good, though. Jedediah, is it anger or their eyes have been opened?
I think it's a little bit of both, and I think it's the moderate Republicans that are actually enraged right now, because some of those people that might have been inclined to stay home or weren't so now are seeing Democrats and saying, wow, this is beyond the pale. These are people who really don't play fair. And, the vast majority of the country does believe in presumption of innocence. There are so many people in this country that, regardless of their party lines, are saying that the way Kavanaugh was treated, not just by Democrats, but by the media, it was horrific. And many people who maybe don't buy into that philosophy of, oh, the media hates conservatives, or they're not part of that conservative, really hardcore base, are sitting back and saying, maybe they do have a point, because they watched what this guy was put through and how he was painted, and they were completely appalled by it. So I think a lot of those people that may not have been pushed to vote are now saying, wait a minute, these Democrats are really went off the rails, and now I have to get out there because I'm fighting for basic tenets of our republic.
One, Senate Democrats that were running in red states for re-election, they already had tough races, and now it looks like the Republicans even pulling ahead in Nevada and certainly in Tennessee.
Right. So Bredesen in Tennessee, obviously now down bigger than he ever was to Marsha Blackburn. And in some states you see, especially states that were purplish to red, because it's energized the Republican votes there. But if you contrast that with what's going on the House level, it may have had a flip reaction, especially in terms of women and suburban white women in particular. But overall, I think this emphasis from Republicans and the president on Kavanaugh is because guess what? They haven't found something that works with voters for the midterm. So clearly they had hoped the tax cut would work, but it didn't work. They'd hoped the economy, the president even referenced that on Fox and Friends today. And again, most Americans don't think that the economy is a topic to vote on. The president had an op-ed that we talked about a moment ago in USA Today this week. It was on, guess what topic? Health care. But again, that's the number one topic in these midterms, health care, and he's trying to position himself as not undercutting Obamacare or Medicare. But again, he's scaring people, and I'm not sure he's telling the truth.
Is it just about Brett Kavanaugh in the Supreme Court, or is it the Republicans deciding we got to get behind, we've got to unite and get behind President Trump, or else the left is going to do to us what they did to Brett Kavanaugh?
It's funny that you mentioned that, Dana. There's a great piece in the Federalist today, which I was reading earlier. How Kavanaugh's confirmation finally united the right under Trump, by Brad Todd, 2 first names. How do you feel about that?
I'm against that.
Okay, so, read this at your own risk. And it goes to what Jedediah was saying, that some of these maybe moderate Republicans that weren't super jazzed about Trumpism have now really coalesced behind him. And to Juan's point, I don't think that the economy or the tax cut wasn't working and they were flailing around looking for other things. I think you build on success, and the Kavanaugh confirmation was just another successful point. But the Democrats can't get out of their own way. They stepped into a hornet's nest, and instead of running away, they're lingering around and they keep getting stung. They keep talking about the definition of a mob. They keep talking about impeachment, and they can't let the Kavanaugh thing go when they should pivot and talk about health care or college costs or Mueller or whatever they need to do.
Don't help them out.
They're probably not taking advice from me, but I think the point is that it wasn't just the Kavanaugh confirmation that fired up the right. I think it was watching the hysterical, desperate behavior of some of these left-wing activists. Their antics turned people off, and it showed average voters it kind of gave them a window into the soul of the Democratic Party. This is how crazy these people are. And if you think about it, they're this crazy now.
Yes.
Imagine if they don't retake the House.
Yeah.
I'm buying a bunker.
I think I'd have to go to a Trump rally to see how crazy
they'll
people
blame,
can behave.
let's see, they can't blame the Electoral College for that. They'll blame gerrymandering, I think.
I hate that guy.
It actually was a guy.
Was he?
Yes, he was. I'll tell you about it later. Kanye
No, tell
West
me now.
touted
Tell me
the President's
now.
America First policies during their free-flowing Oval Office meeting. But first, Melania Trump responds to social media attacks. That's ahead on the 5.
First Lady Melania Trump with some stunning revelations about the president's inner circle at the White House.
He's been in office now almost 2 years. Has he had people that you didn't trust working for him?
Yes,
Did you let him know?
I let him know.
And what did he do?
Well, some people, they don't work there anymore.
Do you think there's still people there that he can't trust?
Yes,
Still working now?
yes.
Mrs. Trump also pushing back against social media attacks that she said inspired her to launch her Be Best campaign.
I could say I'm the most bullied person on the world.
You think you're the most bullied person in the world?
One of them, if you really see what people are saying about me. That's why my Be Best initiative is focusing on social media and online behavior.
Jedediah, boy, she's the most bullied person in the world, one of them?
She does get bullied a lot. I've seen her bullied for her accent. Everybody has to, the first thing they look at is whether she's wearing an appropriate outfit all the time. She just got bullied for that hat that she had on. Before that, it was the jacket. So I think that's fair. I mean, I think every first lady, to be fair, gets bullied, to a certain degree. Michelle Obama certainly took a lot of heat as well. But why is it controversial for her to say that? If Michelle Obama had come out and said, listen, I get bullied a lot from, folks on the right, everybody would have said, yeah, that's probably true. But because she said it, I saw all over Twitter from people on the left, they were critiquing her and saying, well, how dare she say that? I think she takes a lot of heat.
Well, I think she takes criticism. I think that's different than being bullied, but I hear your point.
Well, if it's about an outfit,
good things about her campaign to focus on social media bullying is that if you are attacked on social media, you think you are the most bullied person in the world. It doesn't matter if it's like 10 people or something. It's all perception.
Right.
And that's why she's trying to encourage everybody to just be nice. The one thing about this that maybe tomorrow night on 2020 we'll see something different is that she went to Africa. She was representing the United States. She was saying that we care about you and the human condition. She met with children. She took books. She went and saw the elephants, which are in danger. I mean, she did a lot of things that rather than just having to worry about who's in the West Wing. Maybe they asked her about it. We'll see tomorrow night.
But and Jesse, she also said that she supports women being heard. She'd prefer if they have evidence, but she wants the idea of so this fits with the fact that I think it's the plurality of Americans believe Professor Ford, but what do you think of her saying?
I wouldn't take what you said to be what she said. She certainly has a flair for the dramatic, like her husband. I mean, she goes over there with some really dashing outfits and then does this network interview and stokes palace intrigue and says she's the one that's being bullied and flips the whole script on the media. And I agree with Jedediah. I mean, from the shoes
she can't win,
the jacket, and to remember when she was recovering from surgery and then they were stoking all these rumors about something scandalous going on, and for probably the most beautiful and glamorous and exotic first lady America has ever had, she does not get treated the way other first ladies had. She does not get these glossy magazine spreads. She does not get these kind of beautiful puff piece interviews the way Hillary did or Michelle Obama, and she showed she's still got juice in the White House. There was that one moment when when you tell your husband about these people that are backstabbing, what happens? Well, they're not there anymore. So she does have influence, and I think she wields it really responsibly.
So, Greg, you picked up from our friends here. There's a lot of talk about how she was dressed in Africa, specifically that pith helmet that some people said reminded them of colonial days in Africa. And a contrast to I don't care, the stuff she wore in the back of a jacket. Some people say, oh, well, you know what? Fashion does send a message. Is that fair?
I think it's just, we're fairly superficial people. If you ask any journalist who is involved in the entertainment world, they would much rather write about her hat than any kind of issues. So it's just an easy hook. I think that she, you know, I don't think anybody's taken this kind of heat. I would disagree on that. I don't think Michelle Obama got even a smidgen of the kind of abuse she gets. And I do think her predicament has made her isolated. She is one of a kind. She wasn't born here. She came here. I've said this before. If my spouse became president of Ukraine and I moved to the Ukraine as the first man, I don't think I could handle this situation with one iota of how she.
I would be analyzing your shoes, your jacket,
I would be suspicious of everyone. I would never leave the house. I'd be ordering pizzas. I would have a taster of the pizzas. So I think she's definitely the best first lady since Mary Todd Lincoln.
Don't you stay in and order food now?
Yes, in case somebody from the Ukraine is looking for me.
I know I couldn't find you last night. Kanye praising the president, Greg's monologue, and the must-see moments from the West Wing love affair. Oh boy, up next.
So Kanye went to the White House. I wonder if they tried to scare him into not wearing his hat.
You know, they tried to scare me to not wear this hat, my own friends. But this hat, it gives me power in a way. I love Hillary, I love everyone, right? But the campaign, I'm with her, just didn't make me feel as a guy that didn't get to see my dad all the time, like a guy that could play catch with his son. There was something about when I put this hat on, it made me feel like Superman. You made a Superman. That's my favorite superhero. And you made a Superman cape for me.
And when the president doesn't look good, America doesn't look good.
If he don't look good, we don't look good. This is our president. He has to be the freshest, the flyest planes, the best factories, and we have to make our core be empowered. We have to bring jobs into America, and we're putting people in positions to have to do illegal things to end up in the cheapest factory ever, the prison system.
I'll tell you what, that was pretty impressive.
It was pretty impressive, because all we really have is today.
All we really have is today. We just have today, over and over and over again, the eternal return, the hero's journey. And Trump is on his hero's journey right now. And he might not have expected to have a crazy like Kanye West run up and support. But best believe, we are going to make America great.
So just another day in Trump world. This really is a new frontier, full of incredible allies and surreal surprises. After being told it was going to be the apocalypse, we have a booming economy, ridiculously low unemployment, a new justice, no big ugly wars, progress in trade, and peace is breaking out among the Koreas. And now you have the world's biggest male pop star going to the White House to discuss big issues and getting what seems to be a real concession. You'd think he would receive media acclaim for trying. You'd be wrong.
But if you think you're going to get a thoughtful play-by-play and political analysis, you're not. Because that was an assault on our White House.
That was crazy.
That was bonkers.
Such ridicule by those who would never ever think of taking such risks. They call the event bonkers and crazy. Dog whistles meant to bring up Kanye's mental state. Sorry, Steph. If you used mental illness as a disqualifying factor to express opinion, you'd have no guests on your network. So after today, expect a pile-on. SNL will do a skit that will be much less entertaining than the real thing. And the mean girls at CNN will call him names like they did last night.
And he's an attention whore like the president. He's all of a sudden now the model spokesperson. He's the token Negro of the Trump administration.
Here's some advice. You know, when you're on TV giving a hot take in front of a dwindling audience, I'd hold off on the accusations of attention seeking. But West can handle it. None of this bothers him because he's on a mission. And the risk he's taking, extending an olive branch to someone that the media demands he should condemn, lifts him above and beyond the abysmal groupthink of the entertainment world, especially when he does this.
I love this guy right here. Let me give this guy a hug right here. I love this guy right here.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Come here. Yes. That's really nice. Jim, Kanye, I appreciate it. So let's go have some lunch.
Let's go have some lunch. Why bother? You just ate the Democrats. Hey, Jesse, we were talking about this. There's something actually very powerful. It was just a power. I found it to be very powerful.
Yeah,
and maybe, I don't know.
It was a very special moment. Just think about the raw talent in that room. Jim Brown, one of the greatest running backs ever. Kanye West, one of the most talented artists of all time. And Donald Trump, talented politician and businessman, all sitting together, and it was a real special moment. You played a really important soundbite, and it was the soundbite where Kanye said this: because China has stolen all of our factory jobs from the inner cities and from the core of America, it's gotten to the point where young black Americans are now taking risks and doing illegal things to feed their family because they don't have access to good jobs on the streets anymore, and they're getting put in jail. And if you can solve that problem, and if you can get black America buy-in to the America First agenda, to the Made in America agenda, to the trade agenda, to the energy agenda, that's going to have a huge impact on this country, where you have people coming together of all stripes, and fighting for a nationalistic, patriotic, economic agenda for this country. It's really special. In the media, already framing it as negative. They're saying this was an angry rant. When Taylor Swift or Katy Perry, they do these things, they're called, expressions, soulful expressions, passionate. You don't hear that. So you got to really keep in mind that the media is trying to trick your mind. And I just thought everybody needs to watch the raw of this footage, because it was even more than you played. It was really eye-opening.
Yeah. Juan, there was a moment in there which I think you would have admired, which is he went in there and he complimented Donald Trump, and then he slipped in what he believed was important, that they had to stop and frisk in Chicago because it's destructive. And the look on Trump's face was like, okay. And it was like, so he actually, he's getting, I mean, you can laugh at him, you can love him, you can hate him, but he's actually got a concession, I believe, out of Trump just by doing that.
I was going to ask you, what concession? So you think that Trump now is going to back off of the stop and frisk?
I think that Trump has gotten so much out of this, and I think there is a genuine affection between these two men that he will probably get something out of in exchange for something else.
Oh, okay, but I didn't see any major concession on the table because I didn't see any substance. Instead, what I see is a celebrity. And by the way, I don't understand. I mean, I think that the Oval Office should be treated with some respect. And the idea he goes in there and is using such awful language, I don't think that's very cool. But
Bill Clinton respectful in that?
Let me just say, this is what we heard from Republicans. But now with this, it's okay. But here's the thing about this guy. I just don't understand why it is that, people would think this is about the black community. To the contrary, this is Trump, I think, speaking to his white backers and saying, I'm not a racist.
Oh, come on.
Oh, here's this guy. Here's Kanye West. He's here with me. So
all these
things about me calling people dogs and coming from S-hole countries and don't worry about it. Here's Kanye.
But then you're saying a white person can never change.
A white person can never change. Sought him out. Trump didn't.
That's what you're saying.
No, I'm not.
If a white person is actually having a conversation with a black leader, your reasoning will be it's always to appease white racists.
Greg, come on. This behavior by Trump didn't start yesterday. It started, remember, he had black people coming in, like Jim Brown, like Steve Harvey, remember this?
Yeah.
And Kanye West, right over there, Trump Tower.
Yes.
And again, what came out of it? Zero.
Nope.
So this is the point. This is
called progress.
No, this is progress in terms of Trump sign to say, you know what, forget Charlotte, forget all the things that I've done.
No, come on.
Oh, I have a black friend, Kanye West.
If Kanye wanted to go to the White House and talk to Trump and Trump said no, he would be labeled racist. If Kanye wants to go to the White House and talk to Trump, he gets labeled racist. The guy can't win.
He is a prop.
You have to give Kanye credit. I don't always agree with him. Sometimes I don't understand what he's saying, to be perfectly frank. But he goes in, he speaks his mind, and he knows, Kanye West knows that he's going to be abused by everybody in Hollywood, everybody in his little bubble out there. They're going to make fun of him. They're going to berate him, and he doesn't care. And frankly, that is inspirational, because in this time, we should be telling everybody, if you have something to say, if you want to go, and talk to the President of the United States and have the opportunity to do that, even if you don't agree with him on anything, and you can put policy issues on the table, whether it's stop and frisk or whatever it is, and you can bring, look, we're talking about stop and frisk. That's an accomplishment because now everybody's talking about it.
Let me just say quickly that I don't think that when you have this guy standing up there and saying, oh, let's do away with the 13th Amendment, which ended slavery in this country, you say, I think something's wrong.
There was some substance behind that we can't touch on, Dana, but I do think that what you are seeing is somebody who's willing to sacrifice his cool credentials because he believes in it. And the message was, message is not a single negative message in there.
Well, it can be when you're in a position where you have the freedom and the financial security to be able to like take a risk and do what you want, and you could be a leader in a different way, right? So I also think that everyone needs to just sleep on this. Wake up in the morning and listen to other people. I mean, Juan feels passionately about it, and I'm sure a lot of people around the country do. And can I go back to stop and frisk for just a moment?
Yeah.
Yesterday, President Trump was at the International Association of Chiefs of Police in Florida, or 2 days ago. He loves the police. He supports the police. He says it's the only administration who's been behind you, all that kind of hyperbole. But part of that is trusting the police to do something. Kanye West comes in, I don't like stop and frisk. And President's like, okay, you know what? Maybe then the president, because he has the power of convening, bring the two together, because what's really important is to be able to have the two sides talk. But stop and frisk is not going to stop because police think that is effective unless you have a situation where it goes to court.
Now, I mentioned this about 3 weeks ago that Colin Kaepernick should go to the White House and meet with Trump. And that was the other thing that Kanye West said, that like his goal is to bring Kaepernick and Trump together. Convening.
Right. And the other thing I did think, if I could just say from just a perspective, is this White House is very television savvy.
Yeah.
But sometimes they set up shots that do not work for them, right? And this one's interesting. President Trump's behind the desk.
Yeah.
Usually when he has a meeting with somebody in the Oval Office, he's with a world leader or somebody, and they're sitting, or like Nikki Haley, she was in the two chairs over there. The president knew this wasn't the exact, he didn't elevate Kanye West to that level, right? He's like, I'm going to sit behind the desk, we're going to have a meeting. And the shot, the way that it's set up, the only people that are really in the shot, you can see President Trump a little bit, the profile of Kanye West, and all the media.
Yeah.
Right.
It was actually very interesting to watch it with the sound off.
Yeah.
As I did when I was getting hair and makeup done initially. Because then you could just see them going, wow, this is the most crazy thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But not crazy in a bad way, but just like, it's different. And if I could just add one last thing. We are in a time of extraordinary economic prosperity. This is a time when you can solve problems like the ones that they're talking about. This is where you convene people to be able to talk about this. We're not at each other's throats for certain things.
Yes.
When you have peace and you have prosperity, you can deal with these things.
Might I quote Scott Adams?
Please.
He said, we don't have a money problem, we have an ideas problem.
Yeah.
All right. I had to do that once a show.
He said it better than I did.
Yes.
But drink.
Yes. Everybody gets a drink when I say Scott Adams. If you're fed up with political correctness, you may not be alone. Details ahead.
Gonna play all day. So come down. Let's make a sound.
If you're sick and tired of political correctness and think it's gone way too far, there's good news. You are not alone. A new study finds a whopping 80% of Americans think PC culture is a problem. Researchers say people of all races and ages, including young people, dislike it. Now, Dana, this was a little bit surprising to me. Now, not the 80%, but when you look at the polling on young people, 74% of people ages 24 to 29 and 79% under 24 also don't like it. Did that surprise you?
Well, I was relieved because I thought they might save us. Right? They've grown up watching all of this saying, I can't stand it, and being so nervous about what I can say, and tiptoeing around.
Right.
The other number that didn't surprise me, but it's 8% of Americans are progressive activists. Do you know how much time we devote to talking about these progressive activists? And they cause a lot of trouble, and they're only 8%.
Yeah, and the other thing that was interesting also is that it spanned every race. 82% of Asians, 87% of Hispanics, 88% of American Indians, 75% of African Americans. That to me was also surprising because I thought there would be more of a disparity potentially.
Well, you know, the interesting thing is the politically correct movement wasn't all that bad at the beginning, because initially it was to convince people not to use slurs. Don't say terrible things. But when they shifted into fashioning language as a violation of laws, whether it be on campus or hate crimes, or if you use the wrong pronoun, you could be in trouble. Once the PC movement which started focusing on language to reshape society, they're now on the wrong side of the First Amendment, because the logical extension of deeming language evil is that you shut down discourse on campus and you target people for jokes and you hound people for wearing a red hat. That's the logical extension of, I hate to use the phrase weaponizing, but weaponizing language you don't agree with. It's PC culture is now a bacteria.
I always thought, Jesse, this was one of the main reasons that Trump won, was a disgust that the vast majority of people have with politicians that don't actually say what they're thinking. And then you had this guy show up. He's not politically correct. He sounds like someone who's actually being direct and honest with them. And it looks like, based on this, a lot of people, maybe that is why he won.
Yeah, as someone that's lived and died in the politically incorrect world, this is a fascinating study. All of the minority groups in this country, vast majorities of them believe political correctness is a problem. And that makes me think it's the vocal minority in the media that makes people lose their jobs when they say something controversial or politically incorrect. And it's an eye-opening study. And I just,
and printed in the Atlantic.
Waters World, there it was. Goodbye.
Juan,
What do you say?
What do you think? What do you make of
it? Look, I wrote a book about political correctness. I've been fired for people who think I'm not politically correct. Hell, I work at Fox. But the thing about it is, and this comes back to something was said earlier, there's a small percentage of people at the fringes. The vast majority of people are in the middle, and they don't want intolerant, hateful language, like about immigrants that we comes from guess who. They don't like it. But they think that they should be able to express themselves freely without being condemned. And I'm all for that. But intolerant language from the provocateurs who make money by saying ugly things, I think those people need to get out of here.
Watch your mouth, Juan.
One more thing's coming up next.
Time now for one more thing. So another item coming from the Kanye West Donald Trump meeting. Kanye's phone got a little airtime. Take a look at his password.
No.
That's my kind of password.
Like Podesta.
Just hit the same thing. Just hit the same number over and over again. It's all right. The guys at Barstool Sports picked that up, and you know what? I'm sure he's going to change it after we aired it.
Hopefully.
Juan Williams.
All right, that's pretty wild. In these days of political polarization, there's a surprising bridge across troubled waters being offered, and it comes from Michelle Obama. Take a look at this.
He is my partner in crime at every major thing where all the formers gather. So we're together all the time, and I love him to death.
Obama was talking about a viral moment from Senator John McCain's recent funeral. As you can see here, President Bush hands her a cough drop. Obama explains that she often sits next to Bush 43 at gatherings of former presidents, and they've become good friends. She added, the cough drops were old. Still in the box from the Bush White House, to which Bush 43 responded, yeah, we've got a lot of these at the house. She concluded, party doesn't separate us, color, gender, those sort of things don't separate us. Wow, that's a nice picture for us.
Yeah, the Bushes took the cough drops and the Clintons took the furniture.
We're back to normal.
Back to normal. All right, that lasted 1/10 of a second. All right, let's throw to this. Greg's Dogs with Human Names News. All right, if you give a dog a human name, expect the dog to sound kind of like a human, like this fella.
No.
Walter.
Greg, that was the worst.
Do you know what his name is? Did you catch his name?
Walter.
His name is Walter.
I love that.
It is actually but dogs with human names.
He looks like a Walter, though.
He does. He sounds like a Walter.
Please take that. All right, good.
Is that really the dog?
Yeah, it sounds
Yes, Walter.
Well,
Please.
perhaps the most important thing today that happened at the White House we haven't covered yet, and that is the Save Our Seas Act. Okay, believe it or not, this is the most important thing. President Trump signed this bill today. It was an underreported story, a bipartisan success, unanimously passed through the House and the Senate. Save Our Seas. It's basically going to help deal with that 9 million tons of waste that winds up in the world's oceans and coastlines each year. More than 35 million tons of plastic pollution are produced around the Earth annually. It all gathers in the oceans, and this will help remove all of that. It was a bipartisan bill sponsored by Alaska Stan Sullivan.
Al Gore didn't do it.
And Rhode Island sheltered
All
White
right,
House.
bipartisan and policy wonky.
And
well done.
unanimous.
All right, Jedediah.
I am continuing my opposition to the robot takeover tonight. Check out this Boston Dynamics robot. If you're not scared, you should be. This robot can do backflips, and now it can wash dishes, lift boxes. Don't be tempted to like the robot just because it can do your chores. And this is getting scary. It's like the Terminator
Yeah, but
taking over. I told you, I'm
still
anti.
can't marry.
That's true.
Still can't marry.
And don't forget tonight, Barnes & Noble, 7 o'clock p.m., 86th and Lexington. You guys got to show. I need my conservatives to show up. Hashtag do not disturb. We're going to take down Greg's robot revolution.
I thought that was last night that you went up there.
I'm taking it down one day at a time. No, it's tonight. I got to tease it twice.
Wow, back to
Listen,
back.
it's New York City. I got to get these conservatives.
Supporting from the best over
Show
there.
support.
Set your DVRs. Never miss an episode of The Five. Special report is up next.